Hello and welcome to Programme 5 of Art in Isolation on a particularly cold day in which I and a slightly shivering whippet need to go inside to show you a big painting in the barn. Sometimes clients ask for pictures not because of who painted them or what the subject matter is, but to do with the colours or the design of them. I once had a yacht owner who wanted round paintings to go with the portholes in his little ship. I've had immense amount of interior designers saying, can you give me something with a bit of blue, a bit of yellow, a bit of purple to go with the tassels on the cushions or the curtains? But it's not an altogether ridiculous idea, because my feeling is that art, and thinking about this barn, is particularly relevant. Art has a lot to do with where it is. An element of beauty is context as well as the work of art itself. A few years ago, I realised that for this big barn with these high ceilings and stone walls, I needed something big. And I discovered this through the services of a dealer friend of mine. It's by Ronald Ossery Dunlop, and it's painted in about 1950 or thereabouts. I can't be too specific. And the scene is somewhere, almost certainly in Sussex. He was born in Ireland, but he lived near Chichester later on in his life. He died sometime in the 1970s. One of the first things that delights me about this, and it's always worth thinking about the purpose of a picture, because they can act as windows, and I feel as I'm looking out of a huge pane of glass onto a rather sort of lyrical English landscape. But there's one thing that I find particularly uplifting, but also sad about this picture, because it's as much about those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees in front of me, those gorgeous, upright, vertical plumes. These are elm trees. And elm trees from the 1920s, and then they were hit again in the 1960s by Dutch elm disease, have all but disappeared from the landscape. So this is a reminder, a remnant, if you want, of old England, an England that has gone because of this viral attack. One of the lovely aspects of it also is the technique. Now, Ronald Ossery Dunlop was an alla prima painter, or what's that? So an alla prima painter is someone who paints at speed, wet into wet, treating this great ocean of canvas almost like a watercolour. And if you move in closely, you can see the brushstrokes are very much like those of a sort of sable brush in water, the hatching upwards, sideways. I suspect, I can't be sure, but he probably painted this in the course of a few hours. It's got that wonderful feeling of a galloping pace, and the speed of his eye and the speed of his brush is somehow crystallized in the picture. And standing back from it, I have quite a lot of fun with friends saying, can you spot the figures? Because he's done them so quickly, and they're such an intuitive part of the landscape that it takes a little bit of time. But of course, figures are rather important for landscape. They are the protagonists, the people who walk in and out. They are the witness that the landscape is happening. They become the sort of observers through which you can observe. And can you see just at the bottom of the tree, these two little figures there? And once you've got your eye in, you can move to the left and see another. She's in a cape. And right over there, and you've got 1, 2, 3. Now this type of alla prima painting, which I suspect was almost certainly done on the spot, it doesn't have that sort of feeling of a laboured work done in a studio. It's something that the Impressionists introduced, this idea of going out there with their canvases. In fact, sometimes when you analyse works by Monet and others, you can find flies and bits of sand in the paint as a sort of testament to the conditions in which they were painting. So the idea is that for a big space, a big painting can work. It can let the imagination fly, and I think this one does. And Dunlop's an interesting artist. I've seen quite a few of his works now. You can find them in the Tate and other museums. And he wasn't just a landscape painter. He was a writer. He wrote extensively on the theory of art. He also wrote about portraiture and painted many. I've seen them in people's houses. But here is a perfect example of a match made in heaven. A large painting for a very large barn. But what about small paintings for small spaces? And I couldn't resist showing you this. I have it hanging just above my toaster in the kitchen. And it represents, in rather strident colours, a blue tit. One of those little birds that you're seeing nesting at the moment. And it's lying on the ground. It may, rather sadly, be a deceased blue tit. And it's been suggested to me that I would have a few teasers, I think that's the word, at the end of these films. So I want to leave you with this and see if you can tell me who painted it. And the first person to come up with the right answer gets the other side of isolation, a cup of frothy coffee with me in the gallery. I realise it's not that exciting, but hey, see if you can get there first. So from all of us here, from Oliver behind the camera, from me, from Cedric the dog, thank you again for all of your wonderful replies and your wonderful responses. We sit down, we read them, it keeps us warm in isolation. And it's a real joy, it continues to be a real joy to be able to talk to you out there across the world. It's in fact wonderful to get so many from Australia and to hear that you're prospering, although in a challenging way, in isolation. Goodbye.